Hey guys, sun's going down here on the Kentucky farm on a beautiful Kentucky day. Probably wasn't actually a bad day to be in the stand. Um, per the weather, per the date, we're kind of still picking and choosing our hunts here and trying to pick away at what's yet to come. But we are just following the early muzzleloader season here in Kentucky. Had a couple of really good sits, seen some deer, elected to pass, and also had a pretty cool encounter last night with a bobcat here at point blank range. Looking the he come up and put his feet on the bottom of the ladder, on the old primal ladder stand that I was sitting in last night. So pretty cool weekend. What we're going to talk about tonight is the term the pre-rut. I see a lot of folks talking about we harvested a pre-rut buck, we've seen pre-rut action. So we're going to talk about tonight what is the pre-rut and are we there yet? The answer to that is no, across the whitetail range, no matter where you're at. And why that, using that term, I harvested a pre-rut buck, if you harvested a buck the middle of November, can get you into trouble and can get other folks that hear that term into trouble as well. The pre-rut to me is that's probably why I take so much taking so much time to explain this to you. Is the pre-rut is something to me that I look forward to all year long. Topics that we're going to touch on going into the rut. We're going to talk about strategies to kind of not slow that down, but to slow the approach as far as slowing deer down that you're hunting. Because if you've been in the woods at all during the rut, you'll probably agree that you could have a Mack truck horn in your hand and you could be blowing that at those bucks when they're in the full blown out rut chasing does, and it's hard to stop them. Hence the reason that I love the pre-rut. Now, we've talked in the past couple of days that jump out that, in that pre-rut time period that I look forward to each and every year. But understanding the term pre-rut is a huge thing. Like I said, understanding it, knowing what it means, how to implement your strategies to be successful during the pre-rut is a huge deal. So we're going to break this down, trying to break this down into 3 points tonight, like I said, to try to figure this out and dissect this. What I see a lot of is, like I said, folks saying, okay, let's use Michigan for example, or the Midwest, a lot of Midwestern states that open up on October 1st. You kill a buck that first week, you kill a buck October 15th during the lull. If you experience the myth of the lull, whatever the case is, you kill a buck early, and it's labeled, I harvested a pre-rut buck. Well, to me, that couldn't be farther from the truth. You did not harvest a pre-rut buck. Technically, yes, you harvested your buck before the rut, so yes, it's a pre-rut buck, but the pre-rut terminology is the 7 to 10 days that directly attaches before the peak of the rut. So always remember that is the pre-rut, and why I put so much emphasis on that and not getting that confused with early season is because they're two totally different times of the season, and two totally different times of when to implement the correct strategy to take advantage of that time. What you'll notice is a lot of deer, including mature deer, are on summer food patterns. Early season, we start that season out, those deer are on that, focused on that food. They feel comfortable going out in those food sources about a week into the season, no matter whether you start like September 4th, like Kentucky did this year, October 1st, like Michigan, a lot of Midwestern states did this year. 2 weeks into it, 7 to 10 days into it usually, you start experiencing what is known as the lull. That lull, like we've talked about before, we'll probably touch on it a million more times on this the life of this channel, but that lull is a complete myth. It's not what folks think it is. It's directly caused by pressure. So being able to be successful in the early season sometimes is a huge feat, right? Because if you don't get it done the first couple of days, now you are up against, not up against the wall, but you're up against a lot of competition in the woods. Every weekend that comes adds more hunters, and a lot of folks start slanting their time off or requesting their time off towards that middle of the month on. So you start seeing a lot of a lot more hunters frequenting the woods more often, which creates that overabundance of pressure and creates the October lull. So the early season, that is the mentality of the deer. That's the mentality of the hunters. Easiest way to explain it. Early season, food focused, pressure comes in, dials up the pressure gauge. Deer go nocturnal, go off your food sources. If they go to the oaks, they get bumped out of the oaks, and the chase from human to deer starts. Understand the terminology of the pre-rut. The terminology of the pre-rut is so important because it sets you up for the best time of the year to be in the woods, in my opinion. Now, notice I haven't said any dates yet, because wherever your pre-rut is, depending on where you're at in the country, that changes. So if I were to tell you, yep, October, October 27th through the 31st is the pre-rut, and it wouldn't be true, because it changes all over the country. It doesn't change throughout every year, but it changes throughout the country. If you're in the deep south, your pre-rut's much later than it is in the north or the Midwest. And tied to that is the rut as well. So strategies going into the pre-rut need to be, hopefully you don't have a farm or an area or multiple farms that you're hunting, whether it's owned or leased, that are burned out come the pre-rut. So if you harvested a buck between October 1st, remember this, if you harvested a buck between October 1st and October 15th, you did not harvest a pre-rut buck. You harvested a early season buck. So, and kudos to you if you got that accomplished. There's a lot of good bucks that have been killed out there in the early season. So the second topic on this video is, what do we do with the strategy for the pre-rut coming into the pre-rut? As you can see, I'm sitting here in the truck tonight, eyeballs on some fields that I can see from a long distance. This was, kind of an evening thing that I do. You've heard this multiple times around the world. You can't kill them from sitting in the house. You can't kill them from sitting in the truck. Well, I don't believe in that at all, because I've killed many of deer from this seat right here in this truck and other trucks through my guiding career. That'll attest to that you can kill them from this right here. Because if I was in the farm, like most people are, bumping stuff out, you're just joining all of the pressure that is what the early season is in most areas. We need to start dialing up our emphasis on being more invasive. Still selective, but more invasive. We need to take advantage of, we know where them scrapes are at. Posted a video not too long ago about really using caution about when you find these active scrapes. Is it a primary scrape? Is it a community scrape? Is it a satellite scrape? What are you putting pressure on? When is he there? Is he even daylighting on it to begin with? Should you even go in, blow in there, hang a trail camera, blow a stand, and totally take that away? Or should you be cutting them off and focusing the attention on the scrape, the licking branch that we're hanging on our transition areas where we want them to begin with? This all ties into this, going into the strategy now, going into the pre-rut, going into these last 10 days of October. You're going to start seeing some daylight movement on those scrapes. Now, looking back, there was nothing that we could do with immature or mature bucks on scrapes that are open, that are wide open, blown all out. If it's in the dark, no sense in going in there and adding fuel to the fire. So they're bringing pressure when they tried to daylight. They were being pressured at dark, because you're going in and you're being too invasive, and then all of a sudden you see those scrapes be discontinued. So this time of the year, you need to take an analysis of what that scrape is. When are they using it? Maybe you did put a camera on it. Maybe you did hang a stand on it, but maybe you didn't hunt it. And if you didn't, kudos to you. Or maybe you're one of the ones, such as myself and a lot of other folks around the country, that already have that line of travel established with your licking branches on private farms or out on public ground. Knowing that area on public ground, setting some of these up, going deeper in, finding this line of travel that maybe a lot of folks aren't on each end of it, and they're not destroying it. Public ground, that's a big tip. Find that section, with that half a mile section that's not being interrupted all the time, and you'll find success. That they're tricky to find, but they are out there. A lot of them are out there. So this time of the year, taking an analysis, going into that scrape, finding is he starting to daylight on it now? That's easy for my strategy and my implementation to teach you that, is because my strategy on public or private parcels are knowing that information, because that information station, that licking branch, doesn't change. It doesn't go away. All these other scrapes that you've been chasing early season are ever changing. It's like the ever changing ag term that I use. It's ever changing. They're breaking. They're getting pushed off from them. They're daylighting. Then they're going back. It's always changing. It's hard to catch. It's hard to catch that opportunity. But with these licking branches that are established and your transition area that is established, you are able to pick and choose. Like right now, I'm 5 sets into it. I could have harvested 3 bucks right now, all immature bucks, but there's some best time here yet to come. Wherever you're at in the country, slot this in. You find your pre-rut, find your peak rut date, back it out 7 to 10 days, and then implement this video. So number 3 that we're going to talk about, this time of the year, you need to be prepared for the unexpected. In other words, we've got a good idea. Right now we got a good handle on where the pressure put those deer going in to the kind of that second topic that we were talking about early season, how to adjust to that. Now we're talking about this third point here of about how to be successful and hang that, or put one of the bucks on the ground here during this pre-rut. Expect the unexpected is what I meant by that. Is you've got a good handle on all these other bucks, and then pow, another one shows up that wasn't there maybe wasn't there in the summer at all. Some of these bucks that are showing up here in Kentucky, I really don't know if they were here last year, because obviously we weren't here last year. I do have some intel, like I've said in the past, from my neighbors that are helping this connection about some of these bucks that I'm seeing. But expect the unexpected. Grab a hold of that knowledge that you have on these patterns that that whether it's a core or a non-core buck that are frequenting your farm, and all of a sudden, bam, like I said, you've got a opportunity on a mature buck, or a new buck slides in. Now, he might not be sticking there yet. He might not be as frequenting as much as he's going to keep advancing that more frequent movement on that property or into that licking branch over the next 7 to 10 days. But I can guarantee you that you will, if you're experiencing this, if you haven't blown it out, you will experience some new bucks, should experience some new bucks going into the next 7 to 10 days, creeping up on that Halloween time. Or like I said, if you're from here south, from where I'm at down south, you're going to be, about a week behind us here. That is when what's ever so important about that third topic, about expect the unexpected, is you have to be able to react. This is the time of the year that you got to be ready to react. If he shows up once, get a game plan, start looking at the weather. You probably should already be looking at the weather ahead, know what is ahead in that 10-day forecast. Look at the wind, because if he's made the mistake once, he's going to make it again. When that weather hits, be in that stand and have a great opportunity of killing him. If you don't counter on it the second time, what I find is you still have, it's the old 3 strikes you're out rule. In most cases, what I find, and this goes, like I said, a lot of guiding history here involved in this, but when I go back to that and look back at, made the mistake once, we hung the stand on him, he made the mistake again, maybe a hunter seen him out of the stand, just didn't connect on him, and then whether it was that stand or another set not too far from there, bam, we killed him on the third set, on the third encounter. Are you and have you harvested a pre-rut buck, or did you harvest an early season buck? Because your mentality is not the same at that point. There needs to be a break point there. Once you understand that break point, whether the pre-rut, and I'm talking within days, the pre-rut or early season, once you understand that, then it sets you up for a very successful rest of the season, which includes the pre-rut and the rut and the late season. To me, it all hinges right here.